Let's get into it. Sold Not For Sale podcast. Coach Colin here. We got Joe Rogan. He's starting to sound like the guy at the water cooler. You think everybody is like left leaning and you're talking some mess about Trump. And then all of a sudden he steps in and goes, actually, you know what? This is kind of lawfare. And if it happened to Trump, it could happen to anybody. And we really don't want that kind of thing because it's a slippery slope. And let me tell you something about Mar-a-Lago. It's actually valued much more than the judge did because the judge was working against Trump. He's starting to sound like that guy. And I am here for it. He's sitting down with a lawyer right now, Josh Dubin. And Josh Dubin, Democrat from New York, registered as an independent, but he's been a Democrat for a long time. He is letting out some information that if you were a legal scholar or a lawyer in New York and you were questioning Trump's 34 felony convictions, then you were made to be afraid, outcasted, and even possibly attacked. Very interesting stuff. Let's get into that. I got 3 clips, and then I'm going to play a little bit of who the Attorney General is, ladies and gentlemen, Matt Gaetz, because when it comes to lawfare, the new Attorney General is not going to put up with any of it. I'm going to show you a little bit about Trump's new Attorney General right after these 3 Rogan clips. Let's get into it.
It was never going to happen.
Yeah, well,
listen, what you've done is amazing. Wow. And the people that you have brought on the show have changed a lot of people's perspectives about our justice system. A lot of people. You brought on some incredible people, and you've told some incredible stories. And as you said, people have been exonerated for crimes that they didn't commit. If you are a person who's listening to this and you could be f***ed by the system. It's possible. You could be trapped by a corrupt prosecutor. It happens. Thank God it hasn't happened to you. But if it did happen to you, you would pray that there's a Josh Dubin in the world that pays attention to your case. You know? I
appreciate it. And I mean, it's not just me.
I understand.
There's a village of people.
There is. But a person like you.
Yeah.
You know, and I think highlighting that and highlighting the need for that and an understanding of how the system can railroad you and the system can really f*** you over. I think one of the things that we saw during the Trump campaign was the legal system being used against one of the most powerful people in the world and how they can get away with turning 34 misdemeanors, so essentially one misdemeanor, but 34 versions of it, 34 writing in a ledger incorrectly. That's a misdemeanor and is past the statute of limitations, can be converted into a felony and turned against a guy who's running for president as lawfare. It's just completely using the legal system to try to attack a guy and try to take him out of the race and also try to label him a convicted felon. So once you have this label, a convicted felon, you heard it on all the talk shows, convicted felon. But enough people had a chance to look at the circumstances of the case and understand what he was actually being tried for. Paying someone off to not talk about how he f***ed them, is that what we're worried about? Or are we worried about World War III? Is that what we're worried about? Are we worried about terrorist cells like being established in the United States because our border's wide open? Are we worried about the price of groceries and people being able to feed themselves? That's what we should be worried about, not whether or not some guy f***ed someone. Like, who cares?
It's so interesting to me because the conversations that people in the legal community in New York were having at the time, I cannot tell you how many times. It didn't matter what side of the spectrum you were on politically. But in New York, there's a lot of Democrats. And I can't tell you how often I got this call. What is the crime here? With regard to that particular case, first of all, the DA in Manhattan seemed to realized that it was a futile endeavor to go after this guy and retreated. And then something happened. And you remember the special prosecutors quit because they were furious, apparently, that the DA wouldn't go forward with the case. Then something happens in between. And Alvin Bragg, the district attorney of Manhattan, proceeds with the case. So many legal scholars said, what is the crime here? I understand there's a series of misdemeanors that somehow gets flipped into a felony. Legal scholars that had issues with it. And if they spoke about it publicly, they were attacked.
Right.
Alan Dershowitz was one of them. He was attacked. Anyone that would speak out. And there's this fear for good legal minds to get behind defending a case like that because it's viewed in democratic strongholds like kryptonite, right? So, remarking on that case, yeah, it was weaponized against him. And that's why I think it was this morning the judge in that case agreed to a joint motion by the prosecution and the defense to put everything on hold because they're deciding whether or not they're going to dismiss that case. And if you remember, the drum that was constantly beat before this election was he'll never get out of these state cases. The federal ones we understand because he can pardon himself. But the state cases, those are going to be a problem. Well, not so fast, right? Because now if it was that much of a crime and that people were so up in arms about it, why are they now considering dismissing it? And I think that it puts the lie to the notion that this was really something that we wanted to make an example out of and you can't engage in this type of conduct. What conduct? It was obviously politically motivated. And, and it happens all over the country. It happens all over the country. This lawyer on where you see the human cost of a prosecution, what it does to the person accused, but also their family. And to somehow crawl out from under the weight of the federal government, these take years and a fortune to defend. And oftentimes you're thinking, why did they bring this case? Who are the victims here? And they come up with some loss calculation that's very theoretical. I'm talking about cases where you can't point to a victim that lost money. And, you wonder why some prosecutions are brought and others aren't. And you see, again, what it does to not only devastate families and the accused, but is it really deterring anyone? I would never, ever enter an industry where I was working with stocks, bonds, commodities, anything that was regulated in any way by FINRA, the SEC, because it seems like they can make a case sometimes when there isn't a case to be made. And hopefully, regardless of what side of the political spectrum you're on, what happened to Trump should be eye-opening to people because you don't have to agree with him or his politics or his policies to see what's happening today as we sit here when everything's being reconsidered. And you think about the massive expense that it takes to prosecute these cases. That guy I don't care what anybody says about him, he's got to be one of the toughest motherfuckers you've ever met to stare down all of this. And most people would be in a puddle to stare down these prosecutions and the threat of going to jail and everything else. That breaks a lot of people.
Yeah. And then 2 assassination attempts.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
He's built different.
Right.
And there's no room for gray area between the issues.
Right.
I have a friend who, I learned so much during this election. I have a friend who is from Central America, and she was telling me I didn't. When Trump won the first time, I was furious. I couldn't stand the guy. But when I came to this country, I saw my mom fight for citizenship, and I saw what she had to go through the right way for me to get citizenship. And she said, so I just can't vote for anybody but him. So everybody has their own reasons for doing it. It doesn't mean it has to be all about a cult of personality and you're endorsing everything about the person. And I think that, having that understanding that, look, a lot of people that I spoke to a friend of mine the other day that grandparents, were in the Holocaust. His grandfather survived the Holocaust and he voted for Trump because he's like, I didn't feel protected by the other side, as the grandson of people that went through that. So, yeah, I just think that watching a system get weaponized against someone in that way, it's upsetting, and hopefully, like you said, it opens people's eyes to the fact that if they could do it to the president, it could happen to you.
And it's so transparent. It was so transparent. It wasn't like he committed a murder. And there's a lot of evidence pointing to the fact that he committed this murder. No, it was just a crime that didn't make any sense. You're going to spend millions and millions of dollars prosecuting this crime. You're going to parade it around for the whole world just so the Democrats can have this talking point, convicted felon. And you just see it repeated over and over again on MSNBC and CNN. These pundits want to say, convicted felon. They want to say that. Like, what's the crime? Tell me what the crime is. But when you want to get smart and spout off facts, why don't you tell me about the case? Because I've looked at it, and it's bananas. And if it happened to you, you'd be terrified. Because they just made a crime. They made a felony out of something that's not a felony.
I mean, listen. if you're looking for logic and reasoning in any of these, you're not going to find it.
Man, very interesting, because the last time this guy was on, you know, the time where he brought the guy who decapitated somebody, the murderer, the last time he was on and he had that guy on, he had this very left-leaning persona, which he still has throughout this episode. You know, I think he called Trump a lunatic the last time he was on, something along those lines. I didn't like it, but I commented on it. But to hear him say all of this, to come out and say this, maybe it's because he just registered as an independent. If you find out, if you watch the whole episode, he just registered as an independent. He voted for Jill Stein, I believe he said. Wasted votes, all good, no problem. You know, we fought, don't worry about it, we're good. But very interesting to see him actually speak on this type of stuff. You know, one thing that they brought up while they were talking is how it became kryptonite, the case, to even speak on it, to even question it. It's because someone from the DOJ came all the way down to Bragg's office and started working on the case. It's like, yeah, of course it became kryptonite. The federal government was involved. Not really, I shouldn't say that. But there was a guy, DOJ, and he came down, took a massive pay cut. Why'd he do that? I don't know. It was weird. And he started working on the case, of course. And it was something that could possibly stop Trump from being president. Of course it became kryptonite. You know? The deep state was in the room, and they're like, hey, listen, we're working on a thing. So back up. Okay? Don't worry about what the crime is, okay? The crime is if you stay here and keep questioning us. That's the crime. We're going to start looking at your skeletons. That's what really went down, in my opinion. Very interesting to see that they brought up all this stuff. You know, it's funny how he said in Alvin Bragg's office, something happened. They walked away from the case and then something happened. Yeah, Trump ran for president. That's what happened. You know, obviously he's not going to say that. You know, and then what Joe Rogan said about what are we really worried about? Are we worried about this guy doing this whole hush money thing? Which in reality is not a crime. And I've looked this thing up and down. Nothing he did was an actual crime, and any crime that was committed, misdemeanor, the statute of limitations had expired. So it just didn't make any sense. And then, you know, this guy says, why bring this case? It's like, yeah, we all know why. Like the whole thing, you know, Joe wasn't dancing around it. He's dancing around it a little bit. The guy still has to go back to New York, so I can't hate him for that. But then when he said these two people who he realized, you know, one woman whose mother did it the right way and made her do it the right way in terms of immigration, and saying, I can't vote for anybody but him. You know, my buddy brought up to me, we were talking about illegal immigration, and I'm going to bring up some clips right now. We were talking about illegal immigration, and he was talking to me about how it's hitting legal immigrants just as hard. And a lot of people think that they would be rooting for it. You know, I've seen people in comment sections being like, that guy's an immigrant. Why would he say that? And it's like, because he did it the right way. They're getting hit just as hard when it comes to lack of jobs, not getting taken care of. You know, an immigrant that did it the right way, they're not getting treated like the illegal immigrants that come over. They're getting treated like a regular citizen, which is nice. That's what they wanted, which is why they did it the right way. But the way they're getting treated is not so good. So it's hitting them just as hard. Lack of jobs, lack of getting taken care of. No one really looking out for them, hitting them just as hard. So they're pissed. They're pissed just like any white American, Mayflower white American, just like any way back in time slave black person, slave lineage black person. Everybody's feeling it the same, man. It's hitting Americans, you know? And then it's funny, he says, you know, the Jewish person didn't feel taken care of. Yeah, why would you? Why would anyone feel? I don't even understand why women felt taken care of. They're like, they're looking out for our rights. It's like the one right they want you to have is terrible. I'm not saying don't have that right at all, you know, in regards to abortion, but like, it's not good. Like what? They're like, you know, like they're protecting our rights. And it's like, yeah, but they're letting guys walk around in your change room. And they're just, you know what I mean? They're just, you know what I mean? They're just hanging out there. And they're just saying I'm a lady. And then that's it. I mean, you guys know. They're not really protecting your rights. I don't know how anybody can feel protected as a Democrat. It's crazy. It's crazy. Anyway, let's get into Matt Gaetz, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't know about Matt Gaetz, let me give you a quick breakdown of this beast of a man.
This is one that is probably going to surprise a lot of people because he was not on any of the lists that were floating around out there. And there had been some discussion that President-elect Trump was having a little trouble making this final decision, or maybe this is the person he had in mind all along. But he has now nominated Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz as Attorney General of the United States. He just wrote this on Truth Social. Quote, Matt is a deeply gifted and tenacious attorney, trained at William & Mary College of Law, distinguished himself in Congress through his focus on achieving desperately needed reform at the Department of Justice. Few issues in America are more important than ending the partisan weaponization of our justice system. Matt will end weaponized government, protect our borders, dismantle criminal organizations, and restore Americans' badly shattered faith and confidence in the Justice Department. So we're going to get some folks on the phone to get reaction to this. Fortunately, we still have Steve Hilton with us. Steve, you know, we have been all kind of looking at different people that we had heard were in the mix for this position. And no doubt this is a surprise to a number of them who thought they were in the running. Your thoughts?
Well, the first reaction was, wow, President-elect Trump is really going for it. I mean, this is a very, very strong appointment. And exactly as he said in his statement, all those things he said about Matt are absolutely true. I'd like to add something that our audience may not know about Matt Gaetz, because, of course, he's so familiar as a firebrand. I think it was his book even called Firebrand. I think he called himself that, and a bomb thrower politically. But actually, he's very, very smart on policy. I got to know that when I'd have him as a guest on my show over the years. I remember the very first time he came on my show, and we had him on for a particular topic, and during the break, I asked him about the next thing that we were going to discuss. It was a completely unrelated topic. And he immediately came out with some incredibly smart policy-based observations that were so impressive. And I said, great, join for that discussion as well. And I've stayed in touch with him over the years. He's very smart. He knows policy. He's a serious guy. He doesn't always necessarily show that because he goes for the jugular politically. But it's wrong to dismiss him as just a political firebrand. He's much, much more than that. There's a depth to him that doesn't always come across.
Man, I love it. Listen, and that's the serious side. That's the serious side right there, okay? But then let's get down to what we all love. I mean, I love policy too, but this is great.
Is it safe to say that based off of your comments, you're suggesting that these women at these abortion rallies are ugly and overweight?
Yes.
What do you say to people who think that those comments are offensive?
Be offended.
Mm-hmm. Is it safe to say that based off of your comments, you're suggesting that these...
Yes. Be offended. That is the Attorney General, ladies and gentlemen. Trump, I said it before. Trump just said no thumbs. He said no thumbs, no pinkies, no ring fingers, no indexes, just middle fingers. That's all I want. That's what he had. He was at a desk. There was a bunch of people around him. And he was like, no pinkies, okay? No thumbs. They're like, sir, you need a couple of thumbs. No thumbs. No ring fingers. I just want middle fingers. That's it. And they're like, oh, that's going to be tough, sir. Only middle fingers. Slammed on the desk. That's it. That's all he's been appointing. Oh, my gosh. Did we even talk about Tulsi? Jeez. Everybody's like, Tulsi should have been Secretary of State. And I agree. But now, what is she? Oh, she's in charge of intelligence. Do you even know what that job is? Oh, my God. It's ridiculous. Let's go back into Matt Gaetz, though.
I got it. So Hunter Biden is selling art to pay for his $15,000 a month rent in Malibu. How can you guarantee that the people buying that art aren't doing so to gain favor with the president?
The job of the Justice Department is to investigate criminal allegations. You have information.
Are you investigating this? I mean, someone who bought Hunter Biden's art ended up with a prestigious appointment to a federal position. Doesn't it look weird that he's become this immediate success in the art world as his dad is president of the United States? Isn't that odd?
I'm not going to comment about any specific.
Not going to comment, not going to investigate. So
right.
Hunter Biden associate Devin Archer told us, I got it. So Hunter Biden is.
That's also something I like about Matt Gaetz. Things that other politicians will just brand as like conspiracy, he's willing to jump into a little bit. I mean, he's in a serious room right now, in front of serious people behind him. And he's like, listen, who's really buying Hunter Biden's art? And he's right. It's terrible art. It is. And it's like, it's horrible. It's worse than this. It's worse than that. And he's selling it for like 6 figures. It's crazy. Oh, you know, people just like his art. No one, there's no way anybody likes his art. There's no way. Joe Rogan one time was commenting on it. He's like, oh, I kind of like it, but he's high all the time. Don't worry about Joe. He's chilling. He's having a good time. The multi-millionaire. Of course he likes the art. He could buy a bunch and it doesn't leave a dent. But who's really buying a $175,000 picture made by Hunter Biden? Of course there's something up there. I don't know, man. I don't know. I love it. I love what I'm seeing with Matt Gaetz. I gotta say.
You can clear it all up for us right now. Will the Department of Justice provide to the committee all documents, all correspondence between the department and Alvin Bragg's office and Fonnie Willis's office and Letitia James's office?
The offices you're referring to are independent offices of state.
I get that. The question is whether or not you will provide all of your documents and correspondence. That's the question. I don't need a history lesson.
Well, I'm going to say again, we do not control those offices. They make their own decisions.
The question is whether you communicate with them, not whether you control them. Do you communicate with them, and will you provide those communications?
If you make a request, we'll refer it to our Office of Legislative Affairs.
But see, here's the thing. You come in here and you lodge this attack that it's a conspiracy theory, that there is coordinated lawfare against Trump. And then when we say, fine, just give us the documents, give us the correspondence, and then if it's a conspiracy theory, that will be evident. But when you say, well, we'll take your request, and then we'll sort of work it through the DOJ's accommodation process, then you're actually advancing the very dangerous conspiracy theory that you're concerned about. Now, you were a judge, once nominated the highest court in our country. When you were a judge, I'm just curious, did you ever make political donations to partisan candidates?
No.
No, and you didn't because that would create the potential appearance of impropriety.
I didn't because there's a federal rule barring federal judges from making contributions.
Right, but under that same theory of attacks on the judicial process, like, shouldn't someone be owed like a jury of their peers and a judge that's non-biased rather than getting a judge from your political opponent's donor file?
I'm well aware that you're not asking a hypothetical. You're asking me to comment on a jury verdict in another jurisdiction which has to be respected. I won't comment on it. That case is still ongoing. The defendant
Mr. Attorney General, I hadn't asked you about the verdict yet. We were getting there. I was talking about the judge. And so let me ask you this question about your time as a judge. Was there ever a time when you were a judge when you had a family member who was personally profiting off of the notoriety of a case that was before your court?
I'm going to say again, it's very clear you're asking me to comment on a case in another jurisdiction.
No, wait, hold on, Mr. Attorney General. Did you ever have a family member profit off of the notoriety of any case that you sat over?
Say again, you're asking
yes or no?
You're asking me to comment on a case currently.
Well, it seems you're connecting the dots, Mr. Attorney General. I'm just asking you as to a general principle, but you are aware that Judge Merchan's daughter was profiting off of this prosecution. You are aware that that creates the appearance of impropriety. You know the very reason there's a federal rule against judges giving donations is because it is the very attack on the judicial process that we're concerned about.
All right, we gotta slow it down. I can't watch somebody run circles around somebody else too many times. I'm gonna get dizzy. You know what I mean? It's just too much. It's too much. And let me just replay this one thing, because I don't know if you guys caught this, but this is the information that he's gonna have access to now.
You can clear it all up for us right now. Will the Department of Justice provide to the committee all documents, all correspondence between the department and Alvin Bragg's office and Fonnie Willis's office and Letitia James's office?
He has access to all of that now. All of that. If there was any weaponization, which there was, we all saw it. But if there's anything in writing, he now has access to all of it. Do you guys know what the Attorney General is actually in charge of. They oversee the Department of Justice. You know that, right? Let me just read off some of these things that they do for you really quick. And some of you guys read faster than I do, of course. So I'll put it on the screen so you can read it really quick. The Attorney General is the chief law enforcement officer at the federal government, responsible for enforcing federal laws and overseeing the Department of Justice. He's a principal advisor to the president. He advises the president on all legal matters. More so, here, the Attorney General has the power to institute, conduct, or discontinue any federal prosecution, except for those before Syria court, native court, or court martial. But with that, he is going to be able to throw out anything that has to do with Trump. From what I can see, he can discontinue it. I shouldn't say throw out, but he can discontinue it easily. If there's anything federal with Trump pending, he has the power to do that. And I think somebody who is a loyalist to Trump, like Matt Gaetz is going to do that. So your boy Trump is coming out clean from those cases. You know, he still had to pay what he had to pay, but you never know. He's a president now. Maybe that gets reversed. I don't know. I don't know if he actually paid that money yet. Maybe he doesn't have to pay it all of a sudden. I don't know. It's going to get wild. It's going to get real wild. This is the whole thing. They're gonna accuse him of being a dictator when he starts to throw out all this stuff that's against him. The Attorney General provides guidance and oversight to federal agencies, ensuring they comply with federal laws and regulations. I mean, this guy has a lot of power, leadership of the Department of Justice. Attorney General oversees the Department of Justice, which includes various components such as Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Drug Enforcement Administration, the Bureau of Prisons, among others. Good Lord. Oh my gosh. Matt Gaetz, ladies and gentlemen. Are you guys ready for this? Are you guys ready for the winning? You know? Like I thought the winning stopped at Trump, but the winning just keeps on going. And what's going to happen here? Somebody put this on X. They're like developing. This will be fire, believe me. What's gonna happen to Miss James? Oh, I don't know what's gonna happen to Miss James. I think it's gonna be an issue. She recently just said she's gonna fight Trump for another 4 years. I don't know if you are. I don't know if you are, lady. You might not be. Thomas Massey heard about the news. Reporters were asking him about it. He had this to say.
He's the Attorney General. Suck it up.
Yes. Very professional advice from Thomas Massey. Suck it up. Now, this gentleman was being floated as Attorney General himself, one of Trump's lawyers. He did not get the job. Matt Gaetz did, but I think him and Matt are on the same page when it comes to this.
Just say this to Big Tish James, the New York Attorney General. I dare you to try to continue your lawfare against President Trump in his second term, because listen here, sweetheart, we're not messing around this time, and we will put your fat ass in prison for conspiracy against rights, and I promise you that. So think long and hard before you want to violate President Trump's constitutional rights or any other American's constitutional rights. It's not going to happen again.
We've been warning people on the show, Mike. This isn't the same Trump administration. Stop messing around. Don't rig elections. Don't illegally vote. Don't try the funny business, because we know the team this time and they are not effing around.
Just say this to Big Tish James.
Like, you hear what he said, right? Like, I think it's the same sentiment. I think him and Matt are going to work out just fine. They're going to work side by side. They're going to be just fine. This is absolutely incredible. I love to see it. And hopefully the conversation that Joe just had with Josh Dubin, they're not going to be having conversations like that anymore. No more weaponization, no more lawfare, things of this nature. We're not going to see that anymore. And honestly, I know a lot of people, maybe they don't like Trump. And they're like, oh, Trump's going to do it. He's going to do the exact same thing. He already had every single thing they've said he's going to do. He's already had the opportunity to do. He could have done the lawfare. It wouldn't even have been lawfare. Hillary Clinton was guilty. There was no lawfare. He actually let someone go that was guilty. I'm just saying. You know what I mean? Bleach on a laptop? Bleach on a laptop? That's crazy. Like a special bleach too, to make sure the hard drives were completely wiped. That's crazy. He had the opportunity to do these things. He didn't do it. He had the opportunity to go to Facebook and say, hey, you're going to censor all these accounts. Hey, Google, you're going to do this. He had the opportunity to do all that. Exactly what Biden and Harris did in the past 4 years. He had the opportunity to do all that in regards to censorship. He did not do that. He took the slings and arrows. He took the nasty questions. He had no problem doing it. And after he's done this term, hopefully, we don't see any more lawfare in the United States government, whether from the left or the right, ever again. That's a hope that I have, definitely. And I think Matt Gaetz, Tulsi Gabbard, Donald Trump, and many others are going to make sure that that happens. Anyways, guys, like, subscribe, turn on the notifications, helps us tremendously. And other than that, I'm out.